Hello, hello, and welcome to Art Pop Talk. I'm Bianca.
And I'm Gianna. Bianca, is it your birthday? I don't think it's my birthday.
No, Gianna. It's not either of our birthdays, but it is APT's birthday.
So exciting. There is truly no better way to celebrate 2 years of APT than with the most iconic pop culture and artistic evening that we are always so happy to tune in for while also being critical, the Met Gala.
Love to be critical at the Met Gala. Not invited, but will be critical. This year's Met Gala is exhibiting the continuation of a lexicon of American fashion, and you know APT loves a good part two.
Let's get into this year's Gilded Glamour looks. Gilded Glamour looks, should that be what we wear to the birthday party of APT? Like, should that be like the party theme, or are we too late? Is this for like 3 years?
Oh my gosh. So maybe, Gianna, whenever we have a big APT get together in person, everyone can show up in their favorite Met Gala theme attire.
Yeah, it'll be nice. It'll be like, you can't go to the Met Gala, but like you can hang out with us.
But I can make a Met Gala dress out of plastic water bottles. And, you know.
Edgy alternative. Very underground here.
Sustainability? Yes, we love that theme.
You know what is interesting is that the Met Gala is on a Monday.
Gianna, it's always supposed to be on a Monday.
But like...
Gianna, celebrities don't care about the weekend. It doesn't matter to them that it's on a Monday.
Right, which is what I suppose I'm getting at. Or is it just like, am I traumatized by looking at venues to the point where I'm like, is it that expensive to rent out the Met that they can only afford to do it on a Monday?
You are...
Can the Met not afford...
You are traumatized.
I'm pretty sure the Met cannot afford to close down on a weekend. Like, they're like, nah, man, you get a Monday.
Gianna, oh my gosh, honestly, that is a very astute observation.
But like, why? It's weird.
Is Monday the day that they're normally closed?
Monday is such a specific day. I don't know.
I truly thought it was just celebrities being like, fuck you, we're gonna have the Met Gala on a Monday so you can come home from, you know, your whatever museum job and then tune into the Met Gala on a fucking Monday. But Gianna, maybe you're right. It's that the Met cannot afford to close down for a weekend.
My God, you're right. Yeah, the Met is just closed on Monday, so it's just easy for them. But here's the thing.
But there's so Google much prep and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So like, are they closed for like the week before or something like that?
That's so interesting. I don't know. A New Yorker Art Pop Talk, please help me out. But they're also closed on Wednesdays. So I'm like, you chose a fucking Monday over a Wednesday? Like, I don't know.
So it's both. It's both that the Met can't afford to close.
The Met is equally as thirsty.
Oh my god, the Met is equally as thirsty.
Well,
second of all,
I also forget that like we never talk about that the Met is like, oh god, sorry, hang on. We never talk about the fact I feel as though that the Met Gala is like a philanthropy event. Like, I feel like that's always like beside the point. Like, this is a benefit, folks. But like,
it's not really a benefit. I guess, yes.
The costume department needs money, apparently.
The costume department does need money, but also the celebrities going, like, don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? Like, they are getting exposure to the max, and so what? They can chip in whatever dollar amount. It doesn't matter to them. All press is good press.
All press is good press. Well.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Anywho, Gianna, we have some housekeeping to attend to. If you are not subscribed to the APT newsletter, hop on over to artpoptalk.com and a handy little pop-up will just have you put in your email address so you can subscribe. With that, you will get a monthly programming update from APT, and this is going to be very important over the summer. So the month of May this year has 5 Tuesdays in it, but that 5th Tuesday is Memorial Day weekend. You have plans that weekend. We have plans that weekend. It is the start of summer. So with that, APT is going to have 3 more episodes this month. So our last episode will be on May 24th. And this is the biggie. We are not returning until Tuesday, August 2nd. So Gianna and I are taking the summer off. It is just jam-packed for us, which is very exciting. We have obviously Juliana Porro, cousin of APT, fashion expert of APT. She is getting married in the middle of June. We have her bachelorette party. We have family traveling. We are going to be out and about, busy bees. On top of that, with Gianna and I both navigating full-time jobs, we wanted to reevaluate just how we ourselves conduct APT on the back end. So we're just taking a little bit of a summer hiatus to get all of our programming in order to return to you at the beginning of August. So Gianna, is there anything to add to that?
Yeah, summer break will be very good for us all. I think that, you know, I know that you guys love us, but like we can be
and we
a
love
lot,
you.
So like I get it. No, I'm just kidding. But really, it'll be a good time for us to get our ducks in a row. As you all know, this is currently a 2-woman show. And there are a lot of things that particularly we would like to be better about and get our ducks in a row so we can, I don't know, make more money off of our pop talk, reach out to businesses, get sponsorships, all that fun stuff. That
work on some critical merch for you guys.
Ooh, yeah, new merch ideas. We gotta get APT graphic designer on the phone, faux show. And I don't know if any of that behind the scenes stuff is interesting to you guys, but it does take a lot of work, and we want to keep bringing you guys content, but that does require a little bit of a break. So thank you guys for being understanding, and you can still listen to all the fun Art Pop Talk episodes because we have made quite a bit of content for you as we are coming up on 100 episodes soon-ish, like it's
in August
there.
in the fall we'll hit 100 episodes. So yeah, importantly, you can follow us at Art Pop Talk on pretty much any social media platform. If you again go to artpoptalk.com, sign up for the newsletter. We will send you a newsletter in June and July so that we can keep you updated about what's going on behind the scenes. Hopefully we'll have some new updates for you guys as well throughout the summer, and then we can suggest some of our favorite summer episodes as well. So that'll be really nice. But this summer is going to be a balance of new stuff for APT. On top of that, we just have so much going on with summer plans, as I'm sure that all of you do as well. So it'll be a good break. But
yeah, absolutely. With that being said, I do believe it is time for some art news. Because this episode is a part 2 of sorts, which we didn't really talk about in our beginning intro, but you guys remember the first episode that we did about the Met Gala last year. This year's Met Gala is piggybacking off of a lexicon of American fashion. So for today's art news, you may remember also back in September, we talked about the well-known art duo Christo and Jean-Claude and their dream to encase the Arc de Triomphe in cloth, one that finally came true over the summer of 2021. Calling back to our last art news story again, just to give you a little refresher, it began with 400 tons of steel beams erected like a metal jacket around the structure, followed by the wrapping, which was conducted by a team of climbers over the course of a few days. Following the project's completion, the arch remained transformed for just 16 days. So the wrapping of the arch came 60 years after Christo first became enthralled with this idea of wrapping the monument, and then more than a decade after Jean-Claude's death as well. And Christo just passed away in May of 2021. So where am I going with this? Why am I bringing up this past art news story? Well, a couple weeks ago, CBS Sunday did a story on a man who found a ton of paintings and works of art in what seemed to be an abandoned barn, tasked with the project of just cleaning this place out, not knowing that there were all these gems inside. Turns out that the works of art were created by the artist Francis Hines. And it turns out that Hines was born in 1920. He grew up in Cleveland. He served in World War II and became an illustrator for department stores, did visual advertisements, and was a visual artist. According to Peter Hastings Falk, an art historian and publisher, quote, Francis Hines had his 15 minutes of fame in 1980 when he wrapped the Washington Square Arch. He also wrapped the JFK terminal. He also did installations in Port Authority, and he stands distinctly as the only artist who ever wrapped a building in New York. Hines himself said, almost every piece of his artwork involves tension. Quote, all the energy occurs within this tension. So I am looking at one of his paintings right now. This was one of the works of art that was found in this abandoned barn. It is very colorful. It's very abstract, but we can see that there's this presence of tension within the light line work. And it calls back to these installations. So Bianca, there are a couple things that I want to have just a candid conversation about. First, I'd like to compare the stylization of the wrapped arches between the one that Hines did in New York and the one that took place in Paris, and the differences in the concept, because I think it's so interesting to look at two different artists, also things that took place within technically two different time periods, and have these ideas come to fruition. The product is essentially the same, but the ideas behind it are different. So what are your thoughts in looking at these two images between the arches in New York and in Paris?
Well, Gianna, this is wildly fascinating. I think something that's drawing my attention in the painting that you pulled up for us here is that in thinking about tension, this work definitely recalls kind of like musculature. And it looks very much to me like the musculature of the human body, where you see kind of tension at an anatomic level. And I think thinking about this idea of tension, comparing the wrapped Arc de Triomphe in Paris and this wrapped Washington Square Arch, what's fascinating to me about this is the artist's ability to showcase that tension with lines, and you see that in the illustration. And I think because they're both here, I can see it so well. If I was only looking at the Washington Square Arch alone, I probably wouldn't recognize the same kind of features. But all of these lines that the artist is creating with these kind of like, I don't know what the material is, if they're bands, if it's string, if it's fabric, but it looks like cords that are just pulling against each other. How the artist is able to create tension in different mediums while thinking about structure, like the structure of a human body and the structure of this piece of architecture, is so fascinating. But looking at Christo and Jean-Claude's wrapped piece in Paris, there's something that's so elegant about the drapery of that arch. And I think especially the fabric too is that glistening, kind of glittery white sheen fabric that kind of echoes Paris and Paris's architecture as a whole. So I think that very graceful draping seems to kind of like blend in with the space, but that tension that you see on the Washington Square Arch is also kind of evocative of just the fast pace of New York, I think, as well.
That's interesting. I think conceptually, we definitely have honed in on the fact that Hines is clearly interested in tension. We have that explicit commentary from him describing any of his artworks, and that is definitely not a concept that he derived from in any way. He was really sticking to it. For Christo and Jean-Claude, as we've talked about in the past, they really describe their works sometimes as being environmental, but this idea of impacting this fleeting and sublime everyday experience or encounter that is erupted or interrupted in your everyday. But I think it's safe to say that the two works of art do that. You can't wrap a monument or this idea of wrapped artwork that is almost a genre in its own. It is going to interrupt the everyday experience. So that's present in both. But that's the only thing I feel as though Jean-Claude and Christo particularly were kind of interested in with wrapping the arch. Although I will say, I believe it was Christo's nephew who was in charge of that project last September. And we did talk about how like there is that subtle color to the sheen of the fabric and it is very reminiscent of Paris's landscape. And I'm not sure where that conceptual factor came in between the original artists and the people who created it today. For Heinz, I love that you talked about the muscular feature that happens with tension. I think this is just a really great moment of our natural world is so reflected by the human experience, and the ways in which our bodies work and look are no different than really what we're experiencing in the everyday. Like, we have these bodies because they are able to function in this landscape. So it's kind of cool to almost see that on this very macro scale. In Heinz's work, though, I like that it plays with the negative space. It almost is taking on a whole new shape.
Yeah.
By covering the arch in the middle. And it reminds me of the lines that we see in, is it Milwaukee's museum? With the fishtail.
With the wings.
The wings. Yeah. And how
that they open and close.
Yeah, it reminds me of that. But I think the biggest thing to consider is the symmetry. We have the symmetry of the arches in Jean-Claude and Christo's arch. There really isn't symmetry based on how that fabric is wrapped. There are lines that are unsymmetrical. But in Heinz's work, if you want tension to happen, tension has to be perfectly symmetrical. So it's pretty incredible to see that happen on such a grandiose scale.
Oh, that's really interesting. Like this idea of balance as well. That's very cool. Yeah. There's also something to be said about in Heinz's piece, the way that light is also interacting with it, the way that light is moving through the center, where you see those cords coming down and taking up space and making it something new. This is so interesting, Gianna.
Yeah. So secondly, I would like to speak about studying art that doesn't actually exist. We have talked about this concept before on APT, and we do find that it does usually pertain to pieces of architecture or large-scale projects in which we have plans or sketches or models for these projects, but we don't have the final product. So Christo and Jean-Claude have many of these plans for us to study, and I was having a hard time wrapping my head around the fact that this iconic team dynamic duo had not actually wrapped a New York building before, and that the one artist who has, we don't study him. And this is due to a lot of different reasons, as I found. The lack of documentation of Heinz's work is most likely the biggest contributing factor. The person who found Heinz's works of art was having a really hard time finding any kind of research or documentation about all this work that he was finding. So it was really difficult for him to even try to trace back this treasure that he found. And then it also has to do with Heinz really vanishing from the art market. And notice that I'm not just saying from the art scene. I think that's kind of an important distinction. I think from the art market, because it is clear that Heinz was still creating up until the day that he died. I think it's with the excessive amount of two-dimensional art that we have, he was obsessed with creating in this idea of tension, and he didn't stop. I just don't think that we saw that artwork in the market. With all this considered, do we still argue that Christo and Jean-Claude make the art of wrapping worth studying through their lens? I think what I'm kind of formulating ideas in my head, it makes me think of Poons, right? And how he wasn't jiving with the art market, but that doesn't mean that he stopped creating. However, we stopped looking at art from the lens of Poons because he wasn't part of that market. What do we think about this?
That's a really good point, Gianna. And I just don't know enough about Heinz to say whether or not they were excluding themselves from the narrative in a sense.
I also think it's fair to say that they were. As little as I know about him, I don't know what contributing factors would lead him to self-isolate. But at the end of the day, I think it was his decision and taking himself out of that. Because again, we have this proof that he didn't stop creating.
Yeah.
Just like Poons didn't stop creating. So the stories seem very similar. And we only know what we know, so it's kind of hard to make that distinction or to make that call.
Just like we learned in the Price of Everything, that documentary we watched on HBO for our art market episode, Poons himself was kind of there and able to talk with the audience about that mindset. So I think I just want to maybe dive in a little bit more. But I mean, obviously, you did more research on this story than I did about Heinz. So for me, it feels a little bit odd to push that narrative onto someone when it also could be that the art world and the art market wasn't accepting of the nature of his art either,
Yeah, it's just interesting to me that we look at, and I have an image of it here, this mock-up, this model from Christo wrapping a building in Lower Manhattan. And we study these really beautifully detailed plans. They're three-dimensional models that we have of what they would like to do. And these are things that, to the credit of the artists, getting their work out there has made these incredible models. We've got to give Christo and Jean-Claude credit for that. And the way that they fund their projects, we know, is historically very interesting. But we do have this wrapped monument in New York that potentially could be worth exploring and studying, as it is a living or lived example. So interesting things to think about as we talk about and look at art that exists versus doesn't exist and what we now have access to.
Yeah, Gianna, thank you for that story. That was just super interesting. And I'm excited to know about Heinz as well. And I think it's cool that we have another type of medium to think about. It's not just Christo and Jean-Claude kind of having a hold on this idea of wrapped art, but I'm happy to add people into that genre as well. So very cool.
I think so too, but we do have some more interesting things to talk about. So let's get into the real reason why many of you are listening today. For today's Art Pop Talk, we are talking about the Met Gala. Gala or gala?
I say regatta gala. However, I would never call it the Met
Gala.
Gala.
Yeah, it sounds wrong.
That sounds very wrong. Definitely the Met Gala, darling.
The late Andre Leon Talley called the event the Super Bowl of fashion, and we've certainly come to expect quite the show indeed. Nancy Chilton, Chief External Relations Officer of the Costumes Institute, has written, quote, "The Costume Institute benefit, also known as the Met Gala." So funny.
She just needed to clarify.
She did.
If you didn't know.
See, that was hilarious. I'm so proud of her. That began in 1948 as a midnight supper that invited guests could attend for $50 a ticket. The event was the brainchild of Eleanor Lambert, who dubbed it the, quote, Party of the Year. The event raised funds to support the Costume Institute and celebrated the opening of its major annual exhibition. Since then, the benefit has grown in size, scope, and profile and remains the vitally important main source of funding for the department's exhibitions, acquisitions, and capital improvements. It's been since 1973 that the gala's theme has been tied to an exhibition at the Costume Institute at the Met Museum. And the world of Balenciaga was the first ever theme. As you may know, the event is typically held on the first Monday in May, which apparently, I don't know, I was just taking in all of the prettiness and the funness, not to pay attention to the fact that the shit is always on Monday, but maybe that's just me. But COVID has obviously derailed, wow, this schedule. And it's gathering for the past 2 years. So this year, the Met Gala is returning to its traditional date on an effing Monday after 2 years of breaking this pattern. If, again, you haven't listened to our recap of the last Met Gala, which took place in September of 2021, you might remember that last year's official gala theme was American independence, in tandem with the show In America, a Lexicon of Fashion. This year's exhibition is that continuation, In America, an anthology of fashion, and will open to the public in the museum's American Wing Period Room on May 7th, just a few days after the gala. The Met curator is led by Andrew Bolton. The Wendy Yu curator in charge of the Costume Institute have enlisted 8 film directors: Janixa Bravo, Sofia Coppola, Julie Dash, Tom Ford, Regina King, Martin Scorsese, Autumn Day Wilde, and Chloe Zhao, to help bring the exhibition to life. Anthology is the second of a 2-part presentation saluting designers and dressmakers who worked in the United States from the 19th to the mid-late 20th century. Each director will design cinematic vignettes or freeze frames to accompany each period room's theme. Angelique Jackson writes for Variety, quote, Part 2, which explores the foundation of American fashion in relation to the complex histories of the American Wing period rooms, serves as a preface to the concise Dictionary of American Fashion presented in Part 1, whereas Lexicon explores a new language of American fashion. Anthology uncovers unfamiliar sartorial narratives filtered through the imaginations of some of America's most visionary film directors. It is through these largely hidden stories that a nuanced picture of American fashion comes into focus, one in which the sum of its parts are as significant as the whole. The special co-hosts of this year's event are Regina King, Lin-Manuel Miranda, and the couple Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds.
So the theme for the actual red carpet is Gilded Glamour. And if you watched The Gilded Age, I think you'll get the picture. Think fashion between 1870 and 1890. Think Astors, Vanderbilts, Whitneys. We are going to get a lot of corsets. I'm thinking bustles, big sleeves. This is going to be excess at its finest. This is actually pretty clever, right? So because it's very much New York, right? We're getting this lineage of families and how the city and its wealth was built, and that's going to be exhibited on the red carpet, worn by today's wealthiest figures and patrons of the Costume Institute. So obviously the Gilded Age, we know, brought unimaginable wealth. And when we were reading about some of these articles and when everyone else was kind of thinking about the theme, the Gilded Age is this idea of historical reality and fantasy colliding, right? So in that in itself is what the Met Gala is encapsulating. And I really like putting it in those terms and kind of taking the most iconic and outlandish moments in fashion history and creating a fantasy costume event. You may have watched The Gilded Age on HBO, which is the new period show from HBO Max, which showcases this amazing wealth and the struggles of new and old money. What a struggle, new and old money. I cannot imagine, simply.
But it is like they like don't accept her because she's like new money and they like bully her. It's wild.
No, it's also like on the Titanic, you know, in the movie when
she's
Rose
like,
is talking new money. Yeah. I very much wish that I was new money.
You know what I think about sometimes when we first started APT? I think about how one of the things I think about in Shitty Chatty is how we talked about this one time when we were still both living at home. You were watching Titanic in your room on your laptop, and I coincidentally was watching Titanic in my room on my laptop.
I forgot about that.
And we just both really wanted to watch Titanic alone.
Alone.
Emphasis on alone.
Oh man, that's funny. So Gianna and I are actually recording the intro part of this episode before we watch the red carpet itself. So when we jump into the red carpet recap here in a minute, those themes and ideas and visions are going to be very fresh in our minds. Gianna, are you excited to watch the red carpet? Are you excited about this theme?
I am very excited about this theme because I like that it's specific. Because I feel like these
very good point.
Folks,
very astute observation.
These people last year were just struggling with a concept that was too broad.
They did not understand the assignment.
We got a lot of American Rose and we got a lot of glam Hollywood, which
teacher did not give a rubric.
Yeah, and it was just a really funny, kind of humbling moment for me, at least, to be like, I'm a basic bitch, you're a basic bitch, like you all showed up wearing the same thing. Every day is Hollywood glam for you. Like,
yes. So
I'm very excited. I mean, I am just assuming that Kim is going to be there, but given the looks,
do you think Kim and Pete are going to come together?
I have no idea, and I don't care to comment on that right now, but I will be fascinated how...
No comment.
Like, when I think of someone who is just going to drip themselves in gold and just do...
Oh my God, I know.
You know, I think of her when I think of just...
Gilded glamour.
Gilded gold, or just like a huge gold just facade.
I hope we see some like Schiaparelli in this moment.
We must. I was just going to talk about, like, I'm so excited to talk about hopefully how sculptural things will be.
Yes.
I'm very sad that I can't participate because I feel like this would be my year.
Gianna, you should just cast something and show up. You have a few days to make a work of art, wearable art.
Yes, I'm here for the costume benefit.
Yes, Miss Chilton.
Miss Chilton.
My name is on the list for the Costume Institute benefit.
Use the back entrance.
If you call it the Met Gala, you're out.
Yeah, you're out. Met Gala's out. No, the costume benefit is in.
Costume benefit is in, sis. Oh my gosh. I think that's a great point about things being very sculptural. I'm really excited to see what we get on the carpet. It is going to be extravaganza to the max. If it's not, I'm going to be extremely disappointed. But I think there's going to be, tuning in while also being critical, there is going to be an immense amount of backlash about the exuberance of wealth. And what do we think about the Met, the Costume Institute's benefit endorsing
the Gilded Age, the most classist, like,
seriously,
time period that we love to study in old New York.
Seriously,
it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see who calls it out, like who's the person to critique it,
who's going to make a statement.
There's always someone.
AOC. Tax the rich. Is she going to show up in like a gilded dress that just says tax the rich?
Yeah,
it's like been like etched into the gold plating.
Ooh, interesting. Yikes.
I think we're gonna have a few people call it out. I definitely think that it's gonna be a moment for people of color to talk about, obviously, racism in the Gilded Age. I think we're gonna get a lot of fantastic moments in that sense, but there's also gonna
will be outfits that kind of like refuse to maybe participate in the Gilded Glamour. I wonder if we'll get some rejection outfits, like maybe outfits showing different forms of class and kind of critiquing this era. Bet.
Where we get like the Downton Abbey Gilded Age effect, where there's like staff, from the gift.
I mean, kind of. I mean,
Is that what you're
right?
getting?
I mean, a little
Like
bit, because there's something about like uniform in these time periods, right? You dress kind of based off your job, based on your status, right? That's how we kind of visually place people. So I mean, that could be a way to look at it, Bianca. Yeah. If we want to think about like Downton Abbey. I feel like it's so funny because we're like, oh, I was born in the wrong era. I should have lived in this. But I'm like, nah, bitch, I don't have any money now. I wouldn't have any money then. Like,
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good. You know what?
I like medicine.
I like medicine. I don't like that our climate is in immense trouble, but
You know what I love the most?
We're trying to fix it by showing up at the Met Gala in Gilded Glamour.
Like,
yeah, oh my God. This is the hypocrisy of everything happening here.
Okay, folks, so when we come back, 4 days will have passed. Ooh. And we will talk about all the Gilded Glamour looks. Again, happy to tune in while being overly critical. So be prepared, grab your snacks, and we'll see you all in a minute.
Welcome back, everybody. It has been 4 days since you last heard from us. And as I like to say, wowie. Gianna and
Is that something you like to say? Wowie?
Yeah, wowie. Gianna and I just finished watching the coverage of the Met Gala, and I think Gianna and I are just gonna go for it. We just took a bunch of notes and we're gonna spitball a bunch of thoughts. We are probably not going to be able to hit everybody, and I'm sure, as always, there's going to be a lot of coverage that is going to come out within the next few days. So if it's not completely obnoxious, if there's anything that is super important that we missed, we will keep you updated on social throughout the week. And we can always come back at you next Tuesday. We also have a very, very special guest coming at you next Tuesday who I'm sure would love to add to this discussion as well. So we will keep you posted there. So let's just start off with, I think, a fantastic entrance of the night. Blake Lively was one of the co-hosts of the Met Gala this year, and she really, first of all, she knows how to work a Met Gala red carpet, and second of all, she nailed it to a T. I mean, it was really fantastic. So Blake Lively had this really fantastic transformation dress, and when she first walked onto the carpet with Ryan Reynolds, who was also at first just wearing like a normal suit, like you just can't, standing like that next to Blake Lively is just so fascinating also to see him wearing just like a normal suit. And she's quite literally transforming into Lady Liberty. So we had this copper gilded dress that is in the way that the gown started, and then we had this kind of unfolding where the bustle turned into a blue train, and on that train, not only is it hearkening to this idea of oxidizing of the statue itself, so Lady Liberty turning from that original copper color to the green that it is now, but on that train there are also images of constellations from the ceiling of Grand Central Station. And on top of that, this kind of, what would you call it? I guess Art Deco gilding of the copper dress echoes a lot of the Art Deco architecture in New York City as well. We saw a lot of that on the carpet tonight, this kind of Art Deco New York City skyline. Obviously, Alicia Keys took that very literally. So we really started off on a high note here.
Yeah, we did. Blake Lively is truly like America's red carpet cutie. Like, she just really understands the assignment all the time. Like, this is what she was born to do. I also was getting kind of like the girl on fire, like Katniss Everdeen vibes when she like spun and, you know, it kind of unveiled this whole other look. Like, it was definitely like one of those magical, just impressive moments. But she knows how to work a crowd. I mean, her Heavenly Bodies Met Gala outfit was still, quite frankly, the tops. So I don't know. She gets it. But what it's like just to like be Ryan Reynolds, just to like
stand
bear witness, just to stand there.
I also, Gianna, wanted to say that I was thinking about you almost throughout this entire red carpet, of course, because I kept looking for the sculptural moments, which we will get into. But I loved that Blake Lively started off embodying quite literally the American
statue. Yes, absolutely. I very much appreciated her for this.
Yeah. Speaking of the Hunger Games, also, I just want to give a shout out to Lenny Kravitz, whose red carpet look also looked exactly like Phoebe Dynamore's look. They showed up like wearing the same thing. So shout out to Cinna from the Hunger Games this evening. Maybe next on my list was Casey Musgraves. Casey came in early on the carpet, and we all know on APT we are Casey fans on this show, no doubt about it. However, I think last year Gianna and I were a little underwhelmed by the Ralph Lauren kind of equestrian look that she gave at last year's Met Gala, and I have to say this was quite the redemption for our queen.
Honestly, when you were talking about last year's outfit until you said equestrian, I was like, oh, what did she wear last year? I was wait,
it was
what?
like a skirt and boots.
Yes, but as soon as you said equestrian, it all came, unfortunately, flooding back to my brain. So I didn't see Casey, so to put things in perspective, Bianca and I watched on 2 different platforms. Bianca watched on E, and I watched mostly through the Vogue live stream, which has its pros and cons. If you watch the live stream, it's set up for the interview, so like I miss a lot of the red carpet like transformation moments, which I didn't feel like we got too many of them this year, so I wasn't like too bummed about it. But Casey was one that I didn't see on the red carpet live, but I did see her photos afterwards, and I liked it. It was like a really pretty dress. She looked great, but I don't know if I have too many thoughts about it. It sounds like maybe you do.
I definitely have a lot of thoughts about it because it was definitely giving me John Singer Sargent, Madame X vibes. And not that, I don't think so Casey was wearing Prada. She was at the Prada table with Baz Luhrmann and the cast of the new Elvis movie. And also important to know in APTS, if we don't talk about it enough, I think Moulin Rouge is the greatest movie of all time. I fucking love Baz Luhrmann. We love Baz Luhrmann on this show. And this Elvis movie, we have been waiting, obviously, since before COVID. We all know that Tom Hanks was the first person to get COVID on the face of the planet.
Yeah, this one Tom Hanks was going to die.
He was filming the Elvis movie, and for Casey to show up, I don't know. I also have a lot of questions. Like, is Casey doing a song for the movie? Does she make a feature in the movie? So they were Austin
I just
Butler.
think it's like Baz Luhrmann country is like how I would describe like Casey Musgraves. So it's like definitely
heart palpitations.
That entourage fits her vibe.
To be a part of that entourage.
I will say there are some things that I like about the comparisons that you made on our Instagram with the Gilded Age and with John Singer Sargent's Madame X. I definitely understand like the classic black silhouette, although there is something that like with like the bow feels a little bit more, I don't want to say like pinup to me, but it actually kind of takes it out of the time period for me. But you compared it to one of the women, Mrs. Russell, in a Gilded Age. Mrs. Russell. Okay, I have such thoughts about Mrs. Russell's outfits because they're not my favorite. Like, I really don't like them that much. But remember, Mrs. Russell and Mr. Russell come from new money. So new money. So the whole premise of the show is that they have established themselves in New York in the Gilded Age to prove their social status. So their house is outlandish, her outfits are outlandish, they're really modern, but it's taken into a way where like we as an audience are like, what the hell is that? I don't know, honestly, how historically accurate Madame Russell's outfits actually are. Madame Russell's. They're just one and the same now. Mrs. Russell's outfits are, but I think that's kind of part of what takes her out of context for us as a viewer and what makes her a very interesting comparison to something like the Met Gala, which again is this idea of fantasy and reality colliding.
Yeah, Gianna, I think you're definitely hitting the nail on the head there. For me, this look from Casey, it really embodies the idea of bringing the Gilded Age into a modern context as far as fashion goes. And I think that's what a lot of people were talking about on the carpet tonight. Oh, this is a modern interpretation of a Gilded Age silhouette. Yeah. We got a ton of that.
Yeah.
And I think part of that commentary was a lot of just making up for a lack thereof. Mm-hmm. However, I think with Casey's I think was an actual embodiment of that for me.
Yeah, I mean, and also we got a lot of like futurism too, like we always do. We definitely have our designers that, you know, are very into fashion futurism. But, you know, I'm going to jump a little bit here, and I actually want to talk about Hailey Bieber's outfit.
Go for it.
Just because like Casey's like fan is giving me that like faux feather fur plush vibe, that brings it a little bit into that like luxury modern woman. Oh, I need a fainting couch.
But I think that's the glamour part too.
That's the glamour part, yeah. And then kind of brings us a little bit of like Marilyn at the end. You know, there was like that.
We can't get into that yet because
I know, but there's that nice little progression. So Hailey Bieber, I just have to say, is very much into her style and like her iconic look. She's in it for the long haul, is all I'm saying. I don't have like a huge opinion about Hailey Bieber. So if we think about Hailey Bieber's camp outfit, which I really liked, she flashed us that bedazzled thong. She kind of did that again here, and this one with the low back, the silk kind of dress that like, you know, hugs her silhouette really nicely and just kind of falls off her. So what I'm getting at is I feel like some of her looks may seem kind of underwhelming, or they kind of blur together because they seem kind of repetitive. But I feel like Sister has got like, I don't know, she's thinking ahead. Like she's really like building up this aesthetic for herself, and she's in it for the long haul. But even if I did find this year's look a little underwhelming, perhaps maybe in comparison to some other things we saw, I didn't actually get a lot of like bedtime lingerie glamour looks, I felt like. And I really love like the subtle robe. Like we love those like plushy like lingerie robes. Those are so fun. I honestly surprised we didn't get more of those, because there's even some that like people are buying on my TikTok that's like way crazier than the one that Hailey wore on the red carpet. But I really love the black like fishnet stockings, like the cute little lacy heel. Like I really liked her look. But I feel like, not that we give her a hard time for her looks, because she always looks great, but they're just always a little underwhelming. But I just wanted us to think about this for next year, and then we'll have these like 3 looks to compare. Like, is she gonna give us a slip dress again? Bet. Like, she's in it for the long haul.
I think that was kind of a theme for me overall, was slightly underwhelming. I guess maybe, Gianna, I want to talk to you about what we actually got on the red carpet overall in terms of Gilded Glamour, because I did feel slightly underwhelmed given the theme was Gilded Glamour. And from what we talked about 4 days ago, for you guys listening, 20 minutes ago, I was surprised by the kind of simplicity of a lot of the looks. I think Emma Chamberlain actually kind of did that well. There was a lot of 2 pieces. She wore that Louis Vuitton with a kind of puff sleeve. I think that was an interesting take as far as something that is harkening back to the Gilded Age, but again, in that quote unquote modern context. I just feel like that was the theme of the night, Gilded Age in a modern context. I felt like Emma Stone, for example.
I didn't see hers.
Emma Stone re-wore her own wedding dress, and it was from the archives, Louis Vuitton, but to me it was definitely more 20s. I thought that there was kind of a lot of this 20s flapper aesthetic that was happening in some of the more, I don't want to say simpler looks, because they're stunning looks and they take a lot of time and energy and materiality, but in terms of Gilded Glamour, I just thought they were so much more scaled down. So I thought that was something interesting. But going with that idea of, again, quote unquote, simplicity, there was a lot of talk on the carpet tonight about pulling from the archives and this idea of sustainability, which, Gianna, you and I had been talking about previously. And I'm curious as to a lot of the thought that went behind pulling from older pieces or previously worn pieces, which obviously we will continue to get into with Kim. And I'm just wondering if, going back to the idea that you and I were kind of joking about, this tax the rich, Gilded Glamour backlash, the backlash was in actuality that sustainability that we were joking about 4 days ago. But we really saw a lot of pulled pieces and reworn pieces. I mean, Emma Stone wearing her own wedding dress is...
Yeah, I agree. There was only one person that I got an interview from who particularly spoke about sustainability and wearing a sustainable dress made from recycled material, Camila Cabello. Mm-hmm. Her dress was fine. It wasn't like my absolute favorite one of the evening. But I did think her thoughts on her outfit were very interesting and worth sharing. Mm-hmm. She talked about the Gilded Age, and she was the only one that actually used these words in the interviews that I saw with Vanessa Hudgens and Lala, that the Gilded Age being this idea of industrialization and innovation and modernization, and that is what got us to this point, and that's where we are now dealing with climate change and earth pollution. And so she was the only one who I came across that specifically put it in those terms.
Yeah.
I also just wonder, because like this is a part 2, if, not that I don't want to give credit where credit is due, or I'm not interested in these people like re-wearing their outfits, but we got this first part of An America Lexicon of Fashion, and we got a lot of that. I think we got a little bit more of like flapper in the first one, I would argue. We talked about that quite a bit last year, but I think because this is kind of piggybacking off of last year, it's like, oh, we already did like American fashion, like what's something different we can do. But part of that kind of recycling might come off of the fact that this is also like a part 2. Yeah. Not that I'm not into it, and not that I don't think that's interesting. I just think it's like maybe worth considering.
Yeah, I feel like there's just a weird conflation of this part 1 and 2, where the whole theme, like a lot of people just took the theme as Americana, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, because there was a lot of talk on the carpet as well about, oh, this is, from iconic cinema, and as Gianna and I talked about, you are going to get those kind of vignettes whenever you go see the exhibition. So I think a lot of people were interestingly pulling from the exhibition and not necessarily thinking about the theme of the red carpet, which are obviously 2 different things. And I think that's something interesting about, camp or heavenly bodies. It just, I don't know, there was something that was more cohesive maybe about those carpets than these 2. But to your point, Gianna, it's interesting because there's, parts 1 and 2.
Yes, I agree. And I feel like, to my surprise, there was actually a lot of good discussion about the actual exhibition taking place. I don't know how it was for you watching E, but on the live stream, one of the interviewers they had, I feel like did a really great job not only asking questions about the celebrities and the designers about what they're wearing, but also actually hearkening back to the exhibition and what was actually going to be happening and what was going to be on display. And also talking to those designers who had a hand in this year's exhibition about the actual art and the fashion that will be exhibited at the Met. So to my surprise, I was like, oh, wait, actually, I feel like we don't really get that a lot. And then it actually kind of took me out of context when we're watching these interviews with celebrities and we're just asking them questions about like, oh, what are you doing? Oh, we're so excited for like your book or your new movie. Not that I don't mind like interviewing those people or asking them what's going on in their life, but that's not actually like what we're here for. And so I don't know. I did like some of the discussions that was happening on Vogue live stream.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. There was more of it than usual, I would say, on E! Where they were really talking about the inside of the exhibition, which was interesting. I am excited to go and see it.
And also a little bit of like the secrecy that it takes place inside too. Mm-hmm. Did you pick up on that?
Yeah, there was a lot of who are you excited to see perform tonight and what are you going to do whenever you get inside? There was a lot of that type of questioning about what happens next, like the next phase of the night.
Yeah, and a lot of people who it was their first time at the Met Gala and they were asking, oh, what are you most excited about? And they said to be able to get in to see what happens because us newbies don't literally know what's like about to happen. So yeah.
So speaking of artwork, Gianna, I was wondering if you wanted to talk about Moschino because I thought that Jeremy Scott had a fantastic night.
Quite the entourage.
Quite the entourage. I also wanted you to talk about in comparison to Schiaparelli, which we had hoped to get, which we definitely got a few of it, but I think Moschino for me really took the cake on this one.
Yeah, like they stole the show and like mad props to Jeremy Scott. Like I'm all for it. And the entourage with like Meg Thee Stallion, Ariana DeBose, Simone Ashley,
and Khloe Kardashian didn't come with the crew, but she was wearing Moschino as well.
Yeah, and I hadn't realized, I didn't think that it was Khloe's first Met Gala, but apparently it was. So,
her and Kourtney.
Snaps for those two. What I really liked about the Moschino looks is that overwhelming presence that we got, not only with each like independent design and each independent person, but that was definitely the goal, was to create that overwhelming sense of design and that like gilded floral repetition pattern that we got to see that on so many people. Like that was definitely the point, which I thought was pretty iconic.
And it worked.
And it worked. It hella worked. It worked its fucking ass off. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Ariana DeBose looks like a Gilded Age golden like fence like you would see with ironwork, which I think is so fascinating. It definitely to me was giving me it's interesting to see the kind of standard that Schiaparelli has put forth in terms of their current aesthetic, and to see that kind of replicated in this was really interesting, but obviously a different take on it. But I really liked hearing Jeremy Scott in his perception or interpretation talking about the zeitgeist of popular culture, and I think that was embedded so well in his clothes, and keeping in mind like you're at the Met Gala, this is a very kind of self-reflective presentation for him at Moschino.
Yeah, and I also think it is to be considered, again, contextualizing the people who are wearing these garments, like the three that I mentioned, Meg Stallion, Ariana DeBose, Simone Ashley, like those women had quite the year. Yes. And I mean, just talk about like a powerhouse, talk about, I don't know, I am the untouchable in New York society, and they right now are like at the height of society. So not saying that they're trying to like build up that classist system, but I was just like, damn, that's a social powerhouse right now. Like you chose to dress the social powerhouse women of our generation currently. Like,
oh, absolutely. And not in the opposite direction, but Gianna, you were able to see Hillary Clinton walk the carpet, and I was wondering if you wanted to kind of combine your thoughts on SJP and Hillary Clinton and this type of like you're talking about kind of the cream of the crop of celebrity culture and what you have with the kind of political aspect of Americana in, I guess, opposition to celebrity culture.
All right, I have some thoughts about Hillary's dress, and it's not that I did not like enjoy the context of it. And again, what I liked about it was the conversation that we got directly tying back to the exhibition, that we know what is going to be on display is these works of art and fashion that showcase friendship quilts. So this idea of homemakers and women seamstresses who have crafted and embroidered these specific garments called friendship quilts for other women. So we have this like history tied to her garment, and in the lining of the edge of her dress and the top and the hem, we have these names of all these amazing women, you know, who have inspired her throughout history. And it just, as much as like I like that, and that's great, we just see that so much. I can think of a dress that Natalie Portman wore where she embroidered women's names in the lining and the hems of her dress, and she actually got a lot of backlash for that dress, and I can't even remember why. I don't know. I just feel like it's something that we've seen before. So although I love a good Hillary Clinton moment, and I'm happy to see her out and about and, you know, having a good time at the gala, I'm kind of tired of like the women's names embroidered in dresses. That's a little bit of my hot take. However, freaking SJP looked like straight out of Beetlejuice or something. She's ridiculous. I love her, and her dress was really interesting. I was having a little bit of a hard time following her story though. So the designer of her dress was Christopher John Rogers, and that is the designer of the infamous 2021 Target dresses, where everybody either really loved them or really hated them or just, I think, didn't understand them. But just putting that into context, I feel like is so SJP's alley. Like that's her all the way. I mean, I just said she was looking like something straight out of Beetlejuice, and she made it work, and I hated it and I loved it at the same time, as do I all of her looks. But it was cool. I was having a little bit of a hard time following her story in the sense that she either found a dress or had a dress that was a historic garment, and it was made by the dressmaker Elizabeth Keckley. And that was the dressmaker or seamstress for Mary Todd Lincoln. And so this garment and dress that SJP wore was hearkening back to her and celebrating her as this historic designer of one of our first ladies. So, I mean, if I had to pick between Hillary and Miss Sarah Jessica Parker, I'm giving it to SJP. Yeah. Maybe
Gianna, who do we want to talk about? First of all, okay. Some other interesting looks of the night. Kaya Gerber and Sophie Turner giving us this pre-Raphaelite hair. I was living for it. I'm not sure that I loved their garments actually, but I really appreciated a moment for the hair. I mean, they just, both of them together to me looked like Rossetti paintings, and I wasn't mad about it. Again, don't know that I was particularly living for the context of that in Gilded Glamour, but I know that you love a Rossetti, and was like, oh, shout out for Gianna, some pre-Raphaelite love.
Yeah, and I actually appreciate you sharing those images because I didn't get a lot of their looks on the live stream, so I kind of had to go through the social media archives to find those looks. But yeah, definitely the hair had a moment, for sure. Before we get into a more kind of like sculptural garment that I think is worth talking about, one thing many moons ago when we first talked to you, which is like 2 seconds for you.
I love this game that we're playing. Like time travelers.
Bianca and I were talking about the looks that we were going to get that was going to critique the social structure during this time. So a lot of the looks that I picked up on that was talking about immigrant workers, talking about Black women workers, were actually a lot of the men, which was cool. We had Riz Ahmed, who did a really cool look and said, quote, immigrant workers who kept the golden age golden is what he was going for. He was wearing jewelry inspired by India and his Indian culture, which was also really cool. We also have the actor Cody Smith McPhee, who was the actor in The Power of the Dog, which was just an excellent movie. And he wore Cartier jewelry and this cute little like diamond encrusted little like bow tie and this like kind of equestrian looking like shirt, but he was going for this really kind of blue collar worker aesthetic, and then was wearing red leather gloves, and then it was upscaled with this jewelry with the gloves, so it was like this elevated like blue collar worker look essentially, which was interesting. And then also Questlove, who I didn't see Questlove. I didn't get too much of a interview with him, but he was having some good conversations just about particularly Black female laborers at the time and just paying homage to them. I mean, he was wearing black like he always does, just kind of like rocking his signature look.
What did we think about really the black and gold? I mean, there was really just a ton of black and gold combo. I think that the person who exhibited it the best for me was Carey Mulligan. I fucking loved her dress. I just thought we had so much black on the red carpet tonight. And for her to give that kind of Gilded Age silhouette, but also have the glamour, also have this kind of classic look, I thought it was a stunning dress.
It was really pretty. It was honestly giving me, like, the gold beaded work was giving me the same, like, adornment on Blake Lively's dress, but just on a very kind of, like, smaller level. Just the way, like,
the Art Deco.
Yeah, like, the way the beading was shaped in those kind of small, segregated squares. I feel like that pattern was there. Yeah, that was really pretty. You know, the interesting thing about, like, the Gilded Age I mean, we did get some bustle looks. There were some really unique bustle looks by people.
Can we talk about Normani's bustle? Oh my gosh, look, it was so good. Normani's was one of my favorites of the night. She was wearing this 2-piece Christian Siriano gown. Apparently it took 40 yards of black silk fabric. And apparently they had originally made the dress in red, and then 4 days before they changed the whole thing to black.
Yes. I got a nice...
The shape on that type of bustle, the take on a bustle for that dress, I thought was fascinating.
I agree. I think it's like a nice play on the bustle. You know, I feel like Billy was the person who really went for a more kind of like quintessential look.
Do you want to talk about Billy?
I mean, to be honest, not that much. I mean, she gave us like the Gilded Age look. I'm surprised that we didn't get more. I'm surprised we just didn't get any like Bridgerton bustles, like you can fit people under your wired skirt look.
Well,
like
Madeline Pesh was kind of wearing a cool take on that as well. I thought hers was a very fresh Gilded Age look as well.
Yeah. I just think, honestly, I was surprised at how much black there was.
There was so much black.
When I think of Gilded Age, don't get me wrong, I think of that like gold and that heavy adornment, but I also think of like a lot of lighter pastel colors, like just a grandiose like murals and kind of like almost like a romantic like Rococo kind of vibe, paired with like this like heavy industrial like metal on top of it. And so for if I was doing like Gilded Age, I would almost want to wear like a painted mural dress then covered with like gilded ironwork instead of black. If I was really taking it like to the extreme, maybe that's just like the art history in me. But
so Gianna, oh my gosh, so many thoughts. To your point, there was Tessa Thompson and SZA let me just say once again, SZA, I'm trying to steal one of SZA's dresses so I can wear that down the aisle one day. Oh my God. SZA and Tessa Thompson were wearing these corset, very structural gowns at the top with a very like billowy skirt. Tessa Thompson's was huge. However, that structure of the corset, those kind of bars were seen on the outside of the garment. So there was this kind of, it wasn't prominent, but it was very structural and sculptural in the sense that you're talking about. I wish it would have been exaggerated more. Just that's my take on the theme. But I liked that they were giving us the materiality of the structure that they're wearing. Speaking on the outside.
Yeah, materiality for SZA's dress. Did you see that it had like a wood? It was like a purple wood grain to it. Did you notice? It was...
No, I didn't notice that.
It was a really interesting...
That is so
cool. Silk screen print on top of her fabric. And then I was thinking of like wood and industrialization and how like subtle that was. I don't know. Yeah, she had a good look. And her hat.
Oh, the hat.
The hat.
I mean, never forget Heavenly Bodies. The tiara crown that she wore. It is ingrained in my brain for all of time. So Gianna, I want to do favorite looks, but maybe we should end with that. And do you think it's time to go for the big one? Before we get into that, is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, because to be honest, I don't know. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around favorite looks right now because I don't want to say that I was like underwhelmed or anything like that. But I think some of the ones that we already talked about are the ones that I think are, noteworthy perhaps. I didn't get to see her in an interview. I saw her like a glimpse at the end of the red carpet, but Sydney Sweeney, I thought her like cute little, but I just thought that dress was super cute. Like I just liked it. Like I would want to wear that to like brunch. Like I just liked it.
I want to wear that to brunch. Yes, a very brunch.
Yo, I was very surprised to see Nicki Minaj, and her interview made me a little uncomfy.
It did
She
too.
just seemed a little like uncomfortable, and I know that like
she was talking about her dress.
Yeah, it was like falling down,
her.
and shit. We do have to talk about Cardi's dress.
We're going to talk about Cardi B and Donatella Versace walking down the red carpet together because damn.
Yeah, I can't. Just so much.
Oh my gosh. Donatella has never looked more fabulous. And she's Donatella Versace.
I love her. I think she's
duh.
fascinating. No, you would be surprised. I mean, a lot of people have some controversial opinions about Donatella, just with the history of Versace and how a lot of people think that, she didn't really want to have a hand in her company and then it got thrown to her, blah, 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 But I think she's fascinating.
I fucking love her. Did you see Emily Ratajkowski wearing that archive Versace just industrialized glamour look? I mean, it just really was... that was a spectacular piece of art, I think.
Yeah, between her dress and going back to Cardi's dress, probably the two of the heavier ones, other than the one that I believe Tom Ford made for Lizzo.
Yeah,
that was not metal, but very heavy. That like coat was very heavy.
I mean, to me, that was very Heavenly Bodies, I thought. Because just the robe, I think, for me was a little bit more papal. But,
it wasn't giving me any, like, the gold on black aesthetic, floral gold on black aesthetic wasn't really any different to me than what Jeremy Scott was doing. Like, she could have stood with them, and I would think it was the same squad.
It was Moschino, yeah.
So, but just like that tacky gold chain, I love it. Like,
love it
so much.
Well, speaking of gold, I want to lead in to the conversation actually first starting with Kris Jenner because
I have thoughts. I thought she looked amazing.
So, okay, first of all, spitting image of Kourtney.
That
little bubble hair with the bangs.
We get such harsh looks from Kris Jenner, and which I'm into. It's definitely that like tacky Italian like glam that I'm into.
But she's also a businesswoman. I mean, like there's something to be said for her aesthetic in building a fucking empire as a badass. Like you, I don't know that a soft look like that exhibits.
Right, and just like her in yellow and her cute little like hair flip. And I love, one thing that I do really like watching about the live stream is every year you can see Kris Jenner standing in the back because she always waits to take pictures of her daughters coming up. And this year she had her whole family, so I'm sure that was like a fun moment for her.
I mean, that is a huge moment for her. I mean, could you imagine just being a normal person who's given birth to 5 incredibly, unbelievably iconic women and watching all 5 of them walk the carpet?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
That's a night for her. That's a night for Kris Jenner.
Bless that woman's uterus. Like, I don't know.
So Kris Jenner was wearing Oscar de la Renta, and she, in her red carpet interview, had talked specifically about how she was looking for a softer look, but that echoed one of Jackie Kennedy. And I am wildly fascinated.
I kind of melt at that. Yeah.
Kris Jenner explicitly walked the carpet embodying Jackie O, and then I am flabbergasted.
It's the controversy.
It's not even
it's wildly fascinating.
I'm gonna say it. Kim Kardashian was my favorite look of the night.
Oh, completely. But it's just so set up to be that way. And it was so interesting. Kim's entrance was just like, it was built up to be the dress of the night, with the whole family coming at different stages of the evening. All the girls wearing different iconic looks. Kendall actually did something very interesting with the bustle. I thought
Kendall's look was pretty fabulous.
Yeah, I was into the bustle on that outfit. And honestly, I really appreciated the fact that Travis and Kourtney matched. Like, I just really appreciate it when a couple just gets on the same page, with the low kind of like corset situation for Kourtney. I mean, the look in itself is not my end all be all, but it's very them, and I appreciated the matching moment.
Yeah.
I don't know what there even is to say,
because you just get it.
What a night for Pete Davidson this is. That's what I'll say.
Of this episode. That is the title of this episode.
What a night for Pete Davidson. I mean, this guy.
I'm truly shook to my core, Gianna.
What a night for him. I think it's really fascinating the way in which Kanye took such ownership over Kim Kardashian's look and aesthetic, and was very hands-on with her style, and talked about so much explicitly, like, oh, you think all these other celebrities of our generation are Marilyn Monroe? False. Kim is Marilyn Monroe. And he's like verbally made this comparison about her being our generation's Marilyn. The observation that I need to make is, like, I need to hear it for, like, the pointy boobs. Like I don't know what else to say other than, like, I need a moment for that.
Moment completely recognized. So let's give some context here, because I know that there are probably some people listening who maybe didn't watch coverage of the carpet, or are still trying to process, probably by this time, Tuesday, when this episode is dropping, this shit is going to be fucking everywhere. But, you know, we're just going to do our jobs here at APT and be a little thorough. So, okay. Kim Kardashian walked the Met Gala carpet in Marilyn Monroe's dress. This is not a recreation. This was her dress. Kim talked about how she had to apparently lose 16 pounds to fit into this dress. This dress was last worn by Marilyn in 1962, before her passing, when she sang Happy Birthday to President Kennedy. The gown sold at auction for $5 million. And I'm gonna read this tweet because I think it just sums up perfectly everything that you guys already know. But that feeling that I have in my chest about this moment is so hard to describe because it's just there. I mean, it's just slapping us in the face. And so I'm going to read this. This is more than just a dress. Marilyn Monroe was the biggest star in the world, a sexual icon who rose up from nothing to become a legend. It makes perfect sense in 2022 why Kim K would be the one chosen to wear this dress. She is a modern day Marilyn. And on our social media, I also compared this to, obviously, Andy Warhol's Golden Marilyn. There's something so perfect about the embodiment of that work of art. And I think what Kim Kardashian just did was present to us that Golden Marilyn Andy Warhol piece in the flesh. And my brain is just moving 1,000,000 miles an hour because it is so on point. I mean, there's just, I just don't know that I have words to describe it.
I mean, when
it encapsulates everything perfectly.
And it encapsulates what we try to talk about on APT to bring you guys in other minuscule ways, but to show you that was living history. And when we look at art and objects, we don't get to see them in action. And so it's so important to study objects when they get put in action, especially after so much time. Like, you can think whatever you want to think about it. You can think whatever you want to think about the Met Gala, but this was living history. And it's such a odd privilege, and I have my thoughts about the Kardashians, and we talk about it, but this was a gift. And for our generation, like, I wasn't alive during this presidency, and with the advancement of technology, like, we have the ability to see this dress move, to see it live on TV. It was just really surreal. And
not only to see the dress, but to see it living on a person who has come to not only be a sexual icon, but whose rise to fame, you could argue, was largely started because of her sexuality. And the display, the explicit display of her sexuality that was sent out to the world. And to not only have her, what we just witnessed on, if you've watched the 3rd episode of The Kardashians on Hulu, we just saw her take that back in Kanye bringing her the hard drive with the supposed sex tape on it. To have watched that this past week, to see her reclaim the one thing that gave her rose to fame that wasn't under her control, that Marilyn couldn't control to a certain degree. And then to see her a few days later walk the Met Gala red carpet in Marilyn Monroe's dress.
Yeah, like, guys, like, this is what you need to be writing, like, your thesis about. Like, this is, like, if
I was in grad school right now,
I would be done. Like, I would forget all the research that I just did about...
Yeah, throw that shit out.
Throw that shit out.
Trash that and go with this.
This is just, I don't know, too perfect. And you're right, there is so much to be said for the fact that we had the downfall of Marilyn. We had her unfortunate unraveling because of us, because of society, and the fact that that's something that is clearly not happening to someone who is literally, like, as in control as she is, like Kim. I think that is very important.
Almost the complete opposite too. What is so fascinating about what you just said, Gianna, is Marilyn not being in control, not only of things happening to her, but her image, the way that the public perceived her. She wasn't necessarily in control of that image, and the complete opposite, the way that Kim and her family control every single image put out.
Right.
And the way that she just took back that tape, that one thing that she didn't have any control over.
Right. And finding this Marilyn dress, I mean, could have been a multitude of ideas. But at the end of the day, like, it was her idea to put herself, it was her choice to source this dress to wear it specifically for this event. I think it's almost such a missed opportunity for the Met Gala in the past to not have more living history moments like this, to bring archive works of garments and fashions and have these people bring them on display. And I think they do need to be important moments such as this was. But I mean, something to think about.
I'm thinking. I can't stop.
If you guys are not writing your fucking thesis on this, I don't.
We gave you an hour's worth. It's fine. Just use it and credit us.
Just
quote us in your thesis, please.
Quote us in your thesis. Title it, "What a Night Pete Davidson had."
Davidson's big day.
Pete Davidson's big day. And the blonde hair with the bun, how it was just still... it was still a Kim Kardashian look.
Right.
I mean, she could have done, this like 50s like curled bobbed, and she didn't. She did a tight bun.
Yeah.
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 I mean, incredible. Gotta hand it to her.
She has me.
Yeah.
She did it.
Yeah.
She did it. And I even said to Andrew after we finished watching, I was like, you just witnessed actual history. I mean, you and I texted each other, and it was so funny because as soon as you texted me, you said, "There it is." I was thinking it in my head, like, son of a bitch, like, there it is. It's just incredible. It really is.
Did you notice her shoes, too? I wanted to look up how tall Marilyn was because obviously she couldn't alter the dress, and we talked about her weight loss, and she was wearing some pretty high platforms.
They were so tall.
So I think sometimes we forget how short Kim is. So
I wonder how tall Marilyn was.
Yeah, I don't know, but she had a little hard time walking in it. That's some dedication up those stairs. I was getting so nervous.
But if I had the opportunity, I would also do literally anything I could to wear that.
Oh, dress. For sure. And it's not like, when Blake Lively wore her Heavenly Body dress, she had to rent a pirate bus just so she could stand in it to get from point A to point B. Like, these are not uncommon things for these people. Like, it's all good. All right. Well, get to it. Write your thesis. You have your material. I don't know what else.
I don't know what else to say.
I don't know what else.
That's all she wrote, folks.
I'm just going to go.
Congratulations, Pete Davidson. You fucking made it. Happy for you.
Know that I am.
And with that, we will talk to you next Tuesday. We have a very, very special guest joining us next week. So stay tuned for that. Happy May, everyone. What a way to kick off the month.
Love to see it. All right, everyone. Good night.
See you later.
See you later.
Art Pop Talks executive producers are me, Bianca Martucci-Fink.
And me, Gianna Martucci-Fink.
Music and sounds are by Josh Turner, and photography is by Adrian Turner.
And our graphic designer is Sid Hammond.